Good Thursday morning, and thanks for checking out your latest long-range forecast update. I have a lot to discuss. I'm going to get right into it today. As evidence continues to mount for, a pretty unfavorable pattern coming forward here for the grains and the crops and the vegetation and everything like that. The modeling has gotten pretty aggressive overnight with some intense heat in the forecast, and we're going to talk about the failed attempt that happened this first time around. We need to obviously discuss that. Updated drought monitors come in. We'll talk about that. Our 3 to 7 day hazardous weather outlook. Impactful weather, we're looking at intense heat building across the central portion of the country. More information than this slide here in your email. Now, looking at this is the precipitation percent of normal the last 7 days. I wanted to show this just because it has turned very dry overall. Now, I've had some questions about, well, I've had 2 inches of rain at my farm, and so you see these tiny these specks. Those are great, no question about it. Widespread though, when you're looking at driving patterns synoptically, synoptic is just a Greek word for bigger, if you will. Just looking at the scale. The scale of everything, it just hasn't been that wet. All right, it just has not been that wet. Iowa has gotten very dry over the last 7 days, and when we look at the drought monitor, it has expanded rather significantly in the central U.S. here in terms of West Iowa, East Nebraska, and then down here through Kansas and Oklahoma. Some pretty notable expansion there in the drought monitor. In fact, even getting into a D1 drought here in central Iowa. All right, no change here, and pending weekend rains. This will play a large role into what happens here into the eastern Corn Belt overall. But when we look at everything here, I'm going to go back to that in just a second. When we look at the actual drought map again, we saw the upgrades here in West Iowa, East Nebraska. And it's a big deal. It's a lot of crop there. Okay, and the heat, coupled with the heat, has been an issue. So no change here, except for a little bit of growth. But now the concern, what it's going to become here, second half of July and into August, is expansion of this, and I think it is possible. When we look at how July has started, we talked about kind of the heat being centered up here, but it's also been very dry. This is the first 8 days of July, and this is a key time for a lot of people. It just hasn't rained at all, really, or much, if you will. So there's been a big area of very dry weather, and so the forecast ahead in rainfall is very, very important. Now, if you remember, 10 days ago, last week, we were talking about this period being very hot. This is basically, so as this stops, this is day 4. This is the day 4, the old day 10 rolled into day 4 is what this is. So this is a trend forecast. This is how the model has changed for that day going forward. So it latched onto a trough pretty quickly and replaced the ridge forecast with a trough. So it does, obviously, it bodes concern. It gives concern in the longer term modeling. Now, things have since changed a little bit. We believe, and we had believed, that we had a cold front in this time frame. That's been no secret. The idea is that we thought the other drivers would outweigh that, though. We thought the ridge would come sooner. So we were incorrect with that. The differences now are the Northern Hemispheric Angular Momentum, the SOI, and the MJO. The combination of the background state really now is getting into a point where the heat is going to be hard to deny. Things are a little bit more stable in terms of predicting longer term out, we believe. Now, here's 48-hour rainfall forecast. We're going to get a thunderstorm cluster to move through. Some of these thunderstorms could be strong to severe. Okay, no doubt, and the rain is needed in eastern Iowa and central Illinois. In here, it's pop-up stuff. It's just pop-up. You might get an inch or inch and a half of rain at your place in your area, but everyone else might not get any. Note some good rains in southeastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas, possibly southern Kansas. This would be a big rain here as well for these folks. Western central Iowa, eastern Nebraska, other places, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, western Tennessee. Over the next 48 hours, not much anticipated. Now, when we look at this rainfall forecast here, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Here we go. We'll analyze various models. The 1 to 5 day across the top. Here's your GFS model. This is your European model, and then this is your Canadian model. Okay, and the GFS, if I had to pick a solution, that's probably the solution I would go with. It offers up a heck of a relief for northern Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. This is a big rain. And the GFS has just handled these convective rains better. You look at the European, and it's just not really seeing too much of it. We'll zoom in a little bit. You're seeing rain, but you're not. It's totally different from the GFS on the left. And so for now, if my bets would have to be on the GFS. And the Canadian's not doing too hot either. It's a little bit further south with all this. So we're struggling with rainfall in the near term of this pattern. There's really no denying that. Okay. So when we look at the 5 to 10, we note though that we are seeing more consistency in the modeling. Okay. And before I get into that, here's what I'll show you. If I had a favored solution, it would be really a blended solution of the models, the outcome here. And this is 7 days. This is the next 7 days. This is what I would say has the best possible, the best possibility of verifying, if you will. So it's going to rain, but areas that don't get a good rain. Remember, you're averaging. You're supposed to get about 1.1 inches per week right now. Okay, with average temperatures. That's with an average high of 85 and a low of 65. All right, now we're going to start working in 95 plus, lows 75 plus. So evaporative transpiration rates are way higher than normal. So, you could almost make the case you actually need 2.5 inches of rain a week. Okay? We'll see. That's the favorite outcome. Now we go back to the 5 to 10, and here's what I think. Okay? I think the models have a great handle on it. And when you talk about everything at hand, there's no rainfall really in that forecast in that period in that 5 to 10 where the heat's the most extreme. There's going to be pulse thunderstorms or maybe pop-ups, but even when the GFS is this dry in the 5 to 10, that's concerning. Okay, so I wouldn't look for a ton of rain in the 5 to 10. Now, I took some of our more intense periods of heat and lack of rain in the grain belt in the last 20 years, and I compared them, which really comes out to 11 and 12, which are the most intense. All right, this was a 10-day stretch in 2012, okay, and this was a 10-day stretch in 2011. One was first part of July, one was second part of July. We're really going to fall in about the middle of these. We're going to fall in between these, okay? So this is the current model solution for the core of the heat. Right now, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's warmer than 11. It's rivaling 12. The precipitation pattern, if anything, the drier risks in this pattern are probably going to be right in through here with an over-the-top risk of possible thunderstorm clusters. So that's more of a 2011-like precip pattern. I don't think it's as widespread dry as 2012 was, but I don't think it's definitely not widespread rain. And with the temperatures, the forecast at hand, that's the concern here. When you look at this, here's the European model. All right, you see the trough work in this weekend, and there is a chance for rain here in the east in the favored model solution that I told you about. Getting out into Tuesday of next week, that ridge starts to take hold. 591 heights. Okay, then by Wednesday of next week, 594 heights are working in. By Thursday, we're locked into that, and then we start working in 597 with specs of 600 meter. Huge, we're talking significant, very, very sprawled out, very, very intense heat being possible. And so what I want to show you real quick is just a couple of modeled high temperature forecasts getting into next week. All right, this is getting out of next Monday. Okay, you see the hundreds starting to work into Missouri. Here's next Tuesday. So this is only, day 5, day 6. This is not that far out. Hundreds in Illinois, hundreds in Indiana, hundreds in Missouri. And it will go out here to, here's Wednesday. Again, all that's spreading east. Now, throughout this time, you've got to think your evaporative, you're losing about a half inch of water a day. Okay? So that's significant, all right? And here's the other issue to this is low temperatures. When you talk about nighttime lows, your low temperatures are going to be in the 70s and 80s. You're not going to cool off much. So a very, very hot forecast next week. Looking at the ensemble mean, when we look at this pattern in general, day 9, day 10, again, you see the 594 heights just overtaking 591, very expansive. Here's day 11, 12, 13. You see it expanding again. 14, 15. Starts to back west a tad. It's still 594, 591 across the majority of the belt here. And so in a pattern like this, if we looked at this in a 5-day average, let's look at the heights in a week average. So here's week 2. In a pattern like this, 591 heights being up here, the periphery, the thunderstorm clusters, they're going to stay up here. The only way you would get a cluster to come down into this territory here would be as if you get some type of derecho or very strong cluster of thunderstorms. And then you're looking at damaging winds and everything else, so you don't really want that either. But with a pattern like this, you're really making it difficult for there to be any notable precipitation. Okay, and the ensemble signal is high. I mean, when you go out here, guys, to day 15, let's look at day 12. When you go out here to day 12 and you're looking at heights over 594 and you've got ensemble confidence of 60 to 65%, you've got legitimate heat coming. It's going to be hot. 100 degrees plus. The last time we were 95 plus here for a large chunk of the eastern belt was in 2012. And I think we're going to blow that out of the water. I think some places could be rivaling 105, 100 to 105. I really do. I really think that's a possibility. So we'll watch this, okay? But again, here's our week 1 precip forecast. There's going to be some rain in here, as I discussed. There will be rain. So that's good. That's something that's going to help. If there's an area that could potentially be drier than normal for this period, it's probably parts of the Missouri and Tennessee Valley and maybe the lower Ohio Valley. Maybe in here it's where the risk could verify drier. If the European model, for whatever reason, ends up being right and the rains don't verify, then the temperatures next week are just that much worse. That's something we have to watch. I don't think the Euro's right now, but we can't obviously just ignore it completely. We still have to, give it time of day. It's still the European model. Week 2 precip forecast, as I just discussed. And again, wouldn't be shocked to see some expansion of this going later into July and into August. Okay. The risk here, as noted on the outlook, is it could be drier if the ridge trends stronger. All right, that's a legitimate concern. But again, you see where the core of the warmth is. That's a legitimate, widespread heat wave. Very, very hot stuff here. And it has potential to be one of the most notable, really, on record, especially when we look at CDDs from an energy standpoint. This has the potential to be the hottest July ever on record, ever. July estimation at 435 CDDs is incredible. It's almost like you can't believe it's possible type thing. But when we look at this, based on our strong heat signals, AAM, MJO, blocking, we have increasing confidence that this could last for a while into August. And if for some reason we decide we shut off this subtropical jet from the Gulf and we keep it this warm, we've got problems. Something I'm watching very closely is the Southern Oscillation Index. It's got a forecast to spike about 12 to 11 points here coming up in the next couple of days. Okay? If that happens, and then the models do what it says it does, which is hang out around plus 10 for the remainder of the month, this is the positive SOI correlation into August. That coupled with what we've seen here in the angular momentum department and the standing wave, the MJO, that coupled with this, which is remarkable how low this is going, that's a problem, we believe, that this could continue into August. And so we're going to watch this carefully. The saving grace in August could be tropical threats, right? We don't know where those are going to fall at this rate, on July 9th. But we're going to enter into a period that we've talked about for a long time. It's arriving a little bit later by a week or two, but this certainly could be problematic going forward. We'll keep you posted, guys. Have a great Thursday.